Hey Rebels, my name is Matthew Barton. Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. Do you know people who have live, laugh, love woodcuts or stencils in their homes? What about New Balance shoes or cargo shorts? How about scented candles or coupons to Applebee's? One of the things that recently emerged as a subculture online is something referred to as dadcore or normcore. This shameless, self-aware brand of absurdist humor embraces mass market consumerism, and it finds a way to laugh at itself, and I love it. Today's guest is Tyler McMurchy, and he's turned his own personal brand of self-deprecating dad jokes and normcore into a local phenomenon called Stco. He's built an audience of more than 25,000 followers online over what I personally think just kind of started as an in-joke about his love for Costco hot dogs. So let's get into it. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Hey, really happy to be here.
How's it going, man?
I'm fantastic. This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast, so I'm a little nervous, a little excited. It's like the first time I walked into Costco.
Do you remember the first time you walked into Costco?
I don't. It happened when I got with the woman who is now my wife, and it might have been before we were even married. Her parents had a convenience store in the cathedral area, and they would often go to Costco to get things for that store. And because the word wholesale is right in the name of the business. And so I would help them out at the convenience store. And so that got me into Costco, and then eventually we got onto their membership, and then we got our own as we grew up and got married.
When did you realize how much you loved Costco hot dogs?
It's kind of, it's not just the hot dogs, although I do love them a bit, and I have consumed literally hundreds over the course of I think probably now 2 decades that I've been going to Costco. But really, I just, the older I get, the more I really appreciate a lot about it. And I do appreciate the hot dogs. I appreciate that at the end of a trip where you have loaded several $100s worth of items into your cart, some of which you need, a lot of which you probably don't, that you can have a really affordable lunch of a $1.50 hot dog, and you get a pop with it too, with free refills. And, there's something I really appreciate about that.
It's kind of like a soothing balm after the spank of spending so much money on all the other stuff.
It really is. It really is. Well, at least I'm getting a good deal on this. Actually, I'm getting a good deal on all of this, but is it stuff I need? I don't know. That's for God to judge, I suppose.
I knew of you before Hit the Stco existed, but primarily from your jokes on Twitter, which was you self-deprecatingly roasting yourself and your wife making jokes at your expense. But I was never quite certain if the line was blurred between reality or fiction, because the writing is so tight.
Well, thank you. If you can't laugh at yourself, what are we really doing in this world? But and then the Hit the Stco thing that emerged, I think, that emerged first on Twitter, just as a conversation I had with my wife. The phrase "hit the Stco," I don't know, it just came out of me sometime like a hot dog belch. And I think, and in fact, it was about hot dogs that that birthed it, because my wife and I had just barbecued hot dogs that we had got from the Stco, and she was saying, I really like those Kirkland hot dogs. And I said, oh, I'll hit the Stco later and pick up some more. And she just looked at me the way she often does when I say something absurd, which is often. And then she said, did you just say hit the Stco? And I said, yes, I did. And then, probably because it annoyed her a little bit, I started saying it almost exclusively when I was referring to going to our favorite warehouse wholesale retailer. And then so I would often then recount these conversations on Twitter, because what else do I have to talk about? And I would always hashtag it hit the Stco. And so that became a thing. Then, a few people would say it as well. You've, I think, said it on your on your own as well, Matt, and others have, and but it never really caught on until we started the Facebook group last summer.
Where did that idea come from? That seems also tangential to Twitter.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, how did it happen? So my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, he lives in Calgary, and they have multiple Costco's there, and he's actually in a Costco Facebook group, and he would say, well, this is how you know whether the particular location has a particular item in store. And I didn't see the need for something like that in Regina. He said, maybe you should try that. And I was like, I'm okay. Look, I already spend way too much time on social media at home and at work, but I don't need to do it more. And I also didn't see the need because I thought that, everybody goes to Costco the way I do, which is twice a week, maybe, because they live in the east end of Regina and they know everything that Costco has, and they don't really need to be informed of whether something's in. And but then one night, we're sitting around a friend's house, or actually my wife's cousins and her husband's were at their house. I think having a couple of beer, probably Rebellion beer, and we were talking about this, and my cousin-in-law is a Costco enthusiast as well, and so we started talking about it. It's like, okay, let's give it a shot. So I just pull out my phone, right, sitting at the fire around the fire pit, and I created a Facebook group. I called it Hit the Sco. I invited some friends, and it just took off. And yeah, I had no idea it would become what it has become. But I mean, that was in late June of 2020. And now here we are less than a year later, and we've got 25,000 members. And we probably would have a lot more, except, some people have probably left because of the fact that it can get a bit nuts in that group sometimes, Matt. I'm not going to lie. Things get nuts.
Why do you think it took off the way it did?
Well, I think that, for one, I was wrong. Not everybody shops at Costco the way I do. And so lots of people go once every few months and stock up. Lots of people live out of town. Even people who live in the Northwest, their calculation about when they're going to hit the SCO is different than mine. If we're out of milk in my house, if we're out of spinach that goes in my kids' smoothies, I just hit the SCO because it's a very quick drive to my house. But that's not the same if you're living in Northwest end of Regina. So people do benefit from the fact, from knowing whether certain items are in. That's, I think, one of the things behind it. The pandemic, I also think, played a bit of a role in it. Was people want to know, like, is it worth going? What do they have? Are they going to have what I need, or do I risk going there? And so there's also been this whole culture and community in the group of people helping out other people. And I can't get there. This item's in high demand. Can anybody pick something up for me? And people will do that, like, for complete strangers. It's been actually really, it's helped in a little way restore my faith in humanity. And but also I think we just, there's a service and there's a value to people, but there's also, I think, a bit of entertainment and a bit of the fact that, as you noted in your intro, we kind of are able to laugh at ourselves about, like, the Costco obsession that we share, and who gets that excited about queso, right? Like, it's cheese dip, it's spicy cheese dip, it's delicious, it goes in a lot of things. People go nuts. There was an insane craze over a really really super comfortable and warm, cozy a plush throw blanket that was very well priced, and people went nuts for it. In some cases, it goes a little bit far, I think, the obsession, but in a lot of cases, it's just like a lot of people maybe have found a community where we stress the fact that it's good vibes only in this place. Like, we don't have any tolerance for people being jerks to each other. And that's another thing, another reason why maybe the group isn't as big as it otherwise would be, is we get rid of folks if they're not going to play nice with others.
To put some context for people, Rebellion's Facebook page has been going for over 6 years, and we have over 11,000 followers, and that took over 6 years to get to. You guys did it in about a year. I
Yeah.
think that speaks to the power of the culture of Costco. And I do recall when you said, hey, these guys are helping each other out. I remember when people were posting about wipes and hand sanitizer and, oh, a pallet just arrived. And someone said, I'm not going to be able to get back to the city for 2 weeks. And I'm just so desperate for some wipes and some hand sanitizer. And they coordinated a drop in the parking lot when somebody else picked it up for a third party. It was wild.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, like one of the things that I think is really prevalent in the group is just the culture of people helping out, and we really want to use, as maybe hokey as this sounds, we want to use this as a force for good as much as possible. As I said, I spend a lot of time on social media, just my own personal life anyway. I spend way too much time on Twitter, and it can be garbage sometimes. And if you're reading the comments, people always say you never read the comments, but I have to read the comments, and people are just like these days so free to not be nice to each other. I just when we've kind of created this expectation, and it took a lot of like trial and error, I would say. When I started, I only had one rule, just good vibes only, but that wasn't enough. You had to really spell it out for people. Here's what's okay here, here's what's not, and enforce it. But I don't want to get into that. I mean, like it's like here's the thing: 99.9% of people are good and are just there for a good time. But it doesn't take too many people to uh, to ruin things for folks. So if you can take care of those people, then everything else is good, and you can get back to making weird videos about breakfast burritos.
I do love those videos about the breakfast burritos. One of the things I can relate to is I moderate Rebellion's comments, and I think in all the time, in all the years, I've really only had to block two people. And that was simply just because they were making racist, homophobic comments that had nothing to do with beer or the community. And it was just, you just can't have that nonsense on your page.
Yeah, we've blocked a few more people than that. I'll just say that, but and generally, like I look at it this way, I mean, I don't do this group during my work hours. I don't do it. It's not a paid gig for me. I'm not looking to get
Costco's not
paid.
paying you.
Yeah, no, they're not. No, they're not. And um, I this is supposed to be like just like a fun thing where I can be a bit of a goof, and hopefully do some good, right? Whether that's helping local businesses or kind of directing some uh, uh, money towards some charities to whatever extent we can. I mean, ultimately, it's a group about hey, do they have fire pits in? But hopefully, like you've got this big engaged audience, and you can direct it in some good as well. So, and we've tried to do that as well. But like ultimately, I don't want this to be a thing where it gives me any more headaches than I already get. At work and at home and as a dad and shopping at Costco, right? But generally, I don't get too many headaches. Shopping at Costco is my happy place.
I will let you know that about 2 years ago, we had begun discussions with Costco to get our beer in the liquor store. And last year when it started and we were able to get our beer into the liquor store, we kind of held our breath and we said, we don't know this audience. We don't know if they're going to dig craft beer, if they just want uh, a really big bulk purchase of product to throw into the cart and give her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really interesting to see how different Costco operates from every other retailer. Peeking behind the scenes, it's not surprising, but it is surprising to see the level of transparency and openness they are with us as a supplier who brews beer and provides it to them. They seeing them advocate for very competitive prices for very tight margins is interesting. And when they said to us, there's a formula. If something's going to be on the shelf, it's got to make X amount of bucks and it's got to move in a certain amount of time, or else it's toast. It's gone. you don't survive the churn, right? So it's been interesting to see how they engage in that process, and it really gives me a lot of awe and respect at how well oiled that machine is. But it didn't really register until a friend of my parents, he doesn't drink craft beer. He never has in his life. Just probably just drinking basic industrial lagers. And last summer, he pulls my parents aside and he goes, "Your son's company is at Costco. Do you understand how big a deal that is?" And my parents, they're just like, "No, why?" And he goes, "Do you understand how organized a company has to be to get at Costco?" And they're like, "No." And he goes, "This is a game changer." And then you kind of saw my parents' eyes open. And although I've worked in craft beer for years, they didn't get it. They still don't really get it. And I think it was the tipping point with Costco where they're like, "Oh, craft beer is a big deal."
Yeah.
And now they're like, "Oh, we picked up a variety pack at Costco."
Well, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, right? I mean, and I remember I was excited for Rebellion, and not knowing you guys well, other than through social media and knowing a little bit. But when I saw that a local Saskatchewan company had was being would have was given that platform, that showcase for so that other people who might not ever make it to the tap room or might not go beyond like the kind of the traditional like big brewery choices now have a chance, and you guys are featured there. I thought that was awesome, and I was so happy to see that. And I'm really glad that Costco does that for local businesses, and that's one of the things I like about the company. Like again, not paid for this, but as far as places I go and support with my dollars, I mean, if I'm gonna be spending money there anyway, I'm happy to see them doing some things I like, which is supporting local businesses is something I can really get behind.
I know that support local movement, like you're just saying, has really taken off in the pandemic year. People are
Yeah.
very conscious and aware of that support local piece. I think that's part of what feeds into Hit the Sco is that community support piece. But the fact that they chose local businesses to coordinate with shows me a different kind of culture and attitude that you wouldn't expect from a retailer that big. And I think it's funny how you guys have created this ecosystem that like blossomed out of that. This isn't really a question. It's
like a beautiful mold of some kind or something like that. Yeah. Well, and honestly, like even with the people who are Costco devotees to the point where they join Hit the Sco Facebook page, there is a real appetite for that in the group too, and it's something that we've tried to incorporate. Like when and it started, I think, right around Christmas or leading up to Christmas. I put a post on one day, and I just said, like let's um, local companies we all love the SCO, but local companies you need your support too. Let's put a list of or give us your best local business and tell us why you love them. And it just took off. People were like, thank you, this is great. And they were it provided this platform for smaller businesses to kind of plug their wares and to and let people know that, hey, we're here and this is the kind of stuff we can do. And so we do that. We try and do that regularly. We have a support local Sunday post that we do every couple of weeks generally. Leading up to holidays, we'll also ask people for maybe some suggestions from local retailers, like a great Christmas gift that you can get for your mom from local business or something like that. And one of the other things that we do is like we try to, like my wife and I, we do these SCO product reviews, and it's mostly just to amuse ourselves. I mean, I have never really looked at the metrics to see how many people are watching them. Some people do, but like there's 25,000 people who probably, 23,000 of them have better things to do with their time. But like when, to the extent possible, we'll talk about like local businesses as well as part of those SCO product reviews and the preamble and the banter in between her busting my chops.
Before I forget, I did want to circle back to that queso because my wife was one of the people who was like, "Oh my God, have you heard about the queso from the Hit the Skill group?" I'm like, "No." And she coordinated with her friends to divvy it up and portion it out so they could all try it.
Yeah, it's
And
a
then,
healthy amount they give you.
right, more than I could possibly ever
Yeah,
want.
that's
But
that's
they
the
loved
thing.
it. So
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if you like something at Costco, hopefully you like it a lot because they're going to give you a pretty good amount of it, and that's that's one of the things that you have to. You know, we're struggling with that here because like we'll learn about products that we didn't know. Maybe we passed by them hundreds of times in the course of hitting the SCO, but then somebody will say, hey, you know, I love this stuff and here's why, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to try this now, but but then you have to make that calculation. Do I need that much?
what's been really great is seeing them expand into the lactose-free options and a lot of the dietary specific stuff. Because in my mind, I would never think to go, oh, we need to have tons of gluten free options in a bulk purchasing format.
Mm-hmm.
That's more of like a niche specialty thing. And yet there they are, killing it with lactose free butter and milk and a lot of alt dairy products that are great. Like their almond milk comes in these massive containers. It's fantastic. And you can't get it for anywhere close to that price anywhere else.
Yeah, and that's also one of the reasons, and I never really thought about it before I started the group, but I've seen the benefit of it now, is that's one of the reasons why I think the group is helpful for people because they can put a post saying, you know, what's your best gluten-free ideas or lactose-free or sugar-free options or whatever your dietary needs are. And there's going to be a bunch of other people in that group that have those same conditions and will have some tips that are useful to you. So, I mean, ultimately, I hope that the group is helpful to people in that it provides them some value when they are making their shopping lists and give them an idea of like stuff that might make their life better. You know, is like whether or not it's a plush blanket that their dog likes to curl up on, or it's queso that. And a recipe that helps you use all of it, you know, or a Traeger smoker or something like that.
You just mentioned products that make your life better. And I shamelessly want to transition us into the beer we're talking about today, Golden Crush.
Excellent. Tell me about this beer, Matt.
I'm going to get a nice sound effect for the mic. How's that?
That's a really nice sound, I have to say. It's a
Sound of happiness.
yeah, it is. It is. As sounds go, that's like hitting the SCO. It's like a warm hug. Something great is about to happen.
I don't know if you've managed to dip into the can yet or if you've cracked one for the show. This beer is near and dear to my heart. It comes out in the summer every year, and I have to admit, it's never quite the same as what I remember. Every year it tastes like a remembrance of what I thought it was before and a relearning of what it is now, which is a terrible way to describe a beer.
I don't know, man. That's poetic. It's beautiful. So yeah, it's so for somebody who hasn't had a chance to describe it yet, like or to understand it, what can you expect when you put some of this in your mouth? I don't have nearly the cultured taste you have. I'm a Costco hot dog aficionado. So I know I like Rebellion beer. I'm not quite as eloquent as explaining why. So what are we getting out of this beer?
When you start with a style, you can think of it as a hazy pale ale. It's not aggressively bitter. It has tons of hops, but not hops in the sense of we're going to melt your face off with that bracing punch in the mouth. It's tropical and juicy and citrus and has that really nice rounded softness that you get out of that hazy New England style of a beer. And to me, when you put your nose into it, into the glass, you get really rich citrus aromas. And it's kind of like, oh my, that's so good. And then you take that sip and it's that bright burst of orange and pineapple, and it's really, really juicy, especially as beers go. Really juicy.
Strikes me as a really good beer for like a late Saturday afternoon, just chilling out in your backyard. And maybe you got a few friends over and, just sitting around on the patio. I don't know. That's how it strikes me. But
I've crushed kegs of this thing with my friends on my deck. We've got kegs, we throw it in ice, and we just sit around and we're just giving her, shooting the breeze, talking, playing board games, and it never lasts long. The keg always gets drained out.
well, that sounds amazing.
And it's perfect for summer. I would say if you're going to compare this, if you're a light lager drinker and you only drink light, easy drinking beers, but you're willing to dip your toe into some flavor, but you don't want to get your face ripped off, this is like the perfect gateway beer to bigger, more beautiful things. If you want to introduce yourself to hops, because you've heard all about all those hops that everybody's talking about all the time, but you don't want to like hurt yourself, this is it. This is the great introduction to it.
That sounds awesome. And I have to say, for people who may have only seen the variety pack from Rebellion at the SCO, but they need to understand that there are so many awesome options and flavors and varieties that you guys are putting out that aren't available in that variety pack. I look at, when you're talking about Gateway, I looked at that variety pack that you the recently reintroduced variety pack at the SCO, that I just thought, hopefully people will try this at the SCO, and then they'll go check out the tap room or any of the other retailers that have the full breadth of your varieties, because you guys are putting out so much great stuff.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, over 18 different kinds of beers generally at any given time that you can try. We have rotating seasonals coming in every few months. You're bound to get something new. If you visit once a month, you're going to find something new to try. What's really been exciting is when we introduce that new format, that new lineup of beer with the exclamation point, amber and cerveza, we weren't sure how customers would respond. And Costco was like, we don't want to mess with a good thing. The previous pack did pretty good. It's completely surpassed our expectations. The customers have responded so positively. I think it started with the contest we launched with Hit the Sco.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy, and like when I found out that you guys were launching that new variety pack, I remember we were having a conversation. I was like, maybe we could do something with this that would be something that Hit the SCO members could be involved in. It would be exclusive to them, and we had never done that before. So I really appreciate Rebellion stepping up and saying, "Hey, let's do something with this audience." And I'm happy that it worked out for you. I mean, like we did a contest, and it wasn't, the stakes weren't huge. All you had to do was take a picture with the variety pack, post it in the group, and you're entered to win a $100 gift card to your tap room. Not even to spend at the SCO, you have to spend at the tap room, which I think was a great way to, again, introduce people who might not necessarily always venture out into that realm. And I'm really happy that you guys were able to sell a bunch of beer as a result of that contest. Again, that gets back to kind of like using this as a force for good. Obviously, Rebellion is doing pretty well, but if there is any opportunity that I can do to help a small business through this weird thing that I backed into creating, I don't even there was no strategy here. We're just making this shit up as we go along. Can I swear in this? I don't know if I can swear in this.
Yeah, you can swear.
Okay.
I swear all the time.
We're making this up as we go along. And and then figuring out, okay, how can we kind of direct this in a positive way? And the Rebellion contest is actually like one of the it's kind of one of the high points of the past year. There's been a few, related to Hit the Sco, but that one's certainly up there. And just in terms of like, okay, we were able to actually positively impact sales, and it benefits people who own a business, live and work in the community where I work and live, and so that was really fulfilling for me, I have to say.
We did collect the stats from that whole event, and we did slide an email over to Costco's way to say, hey, we did this contest, check it out. And so we are aware that they know that we did that. But like you said, it's not really super planned. We don't have the kind of money to buy billboards and massive suites of TV and radio ads. So we kind of got to be strategic and throw a little spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And
yeah.
The spaghetti stuck to the wall for that one.
It's funny when we first started this group, just to speak to kind of how the group has grown a little bit in relation to this. So when we first started out and we had like, I think 500 members, I actually, I was kind of naive. I just went into Costco and I asked to speak to one of the managers. I said, hey man, we started this group and it's growing pretty fast. And we were thinking about like running just like a contest just for new members. And wondering if there's anything that you could slide our way in terms of like maybe a gift card or whatever. He's like, well, you have to actually go through corporate to do that. And I completely understand that, and plus it's like a Facebook group with 500 members. At that point it was growing pretty quickly. So my wife and I, we just actually made a contest just for members, and we bought like a 2-pack of like thermal flasks, and we just said, we're going to give this to somebody. So people who post a picture in the group, like a selfie of themselves, but we funded that ourselves. By the time we actually got around to awarding that, it was like a week later. The group had gone from like 500 to 1,100 members. So we were starting to say, okay, this is growing at a rate that we're not sure about. So anyway, fast forward a year later, or not even a year later, we've run that successful contest with Rebellion, an exclusive contest, and then now like Costco, the reps from the store are reaching out for for us to get involved with their Children's Miracle Network contest. They have a little rivalry with the Saskatoon stores, and they want to make sure that this Regina store out fundraises. And so we're actually working together with them officially. I still haven't talked to anybody on the corporate level, and I don't need to really, but it's kind of interesting how it's evolved that way. And you know what? And ultimately, if it ends up doing some good, like whether it's selling more Rebellion beer or resulting in more donations to the Children's Miracle Network, hey, I'm more than happy to do that. Like what are we here for if not to benefit others? And if we can do that, that's awesome.
I think one of the hallmarks of knowing if you are big time or not is having merch, having a t-shirt or a hoodie.
Yeah, that was another thing that came up. We've got merch now, which is like, it's hilarious because like as the group grew, I would hear once in a while people would make a comment, you guys should make t-shirts or you should make masks. And I'm like, okay, you guys realize this isn't my job, right? I don't have, and that sounds like a lot of work. And because people would see me wearing my own personal Hit the Sco shirt, and there was 2 in existence. Me and my fellow admin, my wife's cousin's husband, Drew, the other admin, we made one for him for a gift. And I made one for myself because, I'm going to have one too. And then, so I started wearing this thing every time I was in a video, for the group. And then, but like, I was never going to get to the point where I'm going to like make the arrangements and source out bids for merchandise. I wasn't. But then, actually, this is another thing, like another local company just down the street from Rebellion, actually, Souls and Suits, who provide this kind of service for sports teams, dance groups, and other sort of thing. They actually approached us and said, hey, what do you think about this? We've done a thing where we've made shirts for a group of nurses, and then the proceeds for those sales, a portion of them went to a charity. Would you be interested in doing something like that? And I was like, well, I don't know how much of an appetite there would be for Hit the Sco merch, but sure. I mean, if it doesn't cost you anything to put something on a website and stuff. So we came up with a few ideas and concepts, and then they put some designs on a hoodie, on t-shirts, on masks, and on tote bags, and yeah, like we now we're in a position where we're going to be able to donate several $100s. In fact, we announced that earlier this month that we donated over $600 to Sophia House of Regina as a result of those sales. So that was good. I mean, my wife and I aren't making any money, but if it breathes some life into a local business that's struggling again because of the pandemic, sports teams weren't active, and a lot of other extracurricular activities that would have provided their kind of the lifeblood for their business. If we were able to direct a little bit of action towards them, I mean, happy to do that, right? So yeah, it's been pretty cool, and we're actually expanding the merch lines. We announced earlier this month we're going with fanny packs and tank tops for the summer. So and we'll still be those will still be on sale. If you want to get some for yourself, you go to soulsandsuits.com, and that souls is in the soles of your feet. soulsandsuits.com/HitTheSco, and you can see the lineup of Hit the Sco merch and get yourself some.
I love it, man.
Costco makes no money from this. Costco makes zero money from this, just so you know.
And it goes to help Sophia House, which is a really awesome local group that is doing amazing things for our community.
Yeah, and they're a second stage shelter, so they don't receive government funding, so they're very much reliant on donations from benefactors, and so it was good. And one of the things, again, we keep referencing the pandemic because what hasn't been touched by it, but like their services, they've had an increase in demand for services during the pandemic. So if we can provide a bit of support their way, we're super happy to do that. And it also kind of fosters the community. Like when you see somebody in the store with a couple of the totes or wearing the hoodie, that was cool. It's like, man, that happened because previously the only way I would know if that person was a Hit the Sco member, you'd have to kind of Sherlock Holmes it from what was in their cart. Okay, so they've got an urban throw and they've got some queso. They've got the dill pickle salad. Okay, yeah, they're probably in the group, Or you see people taking pictures of stuff, and then you see those pictures end up in the group later. So that's one of the things that or occasionally, and this has been weird. Now people are addressing me by name or surreptitiously taking pictures of me and my wife if we're shopping and saying spotted at the Sco. So that's been kind of an interesting experience.
Stars, they're just like us.
Yeah, stars. This is the weirdest form of very niche celebrity that you could possibly imagine. I don't think you could come up with a more weird and niche category of celebrity than somebody who's famous as a result of a Facebook group devoted to a particular store that is basically a warehouse.
Final question: where can people find you on Twitter? I highly recommend they find you on Twitter.
Okay, well they can find me at Tyler McMurchy at Tyler McMurchy. If you search the hashtag Hit the Sco, HITTHESTCO, you'll find a bunch of tweets by me as well, and you'll also find the official, completely unnecessary Hit the Sco Twitter account. That really, there's no reason for it other than I just thought I should claim that handle before somebody else did. Same thing on Instagram, a completely unnecessary Instagram account. But primarily, if you want to find out just what the hell Matt and I have been talking about for the last little while, you can also join the group. You don't have to be in Regina. You don't even have to be a Costco member. We don't do any kind of rubber glove check on you. The only thing is we ask that you play nice with others and answer the membership questions and abide by the rules. But other than that, you can join the party and see what the hell I've been talking about.
Well, Tyler, thank you for your time today.
Matt, this has been a lot of fun. I'm grateful to have been asked.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Rebels, thanks for listening today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on our brand new Facebook group page, The Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm going to include links to Hit the Sco in the show notes so you can find out all about it. I'm also proud to let you know that we're members of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. It's a one-stop shop for tons of locally produced shows from across our province, and you can find them at thesaskpodcastnetwork.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untapped so you don't miss out on the latest in Sask craft beer news. Thank you for joining the rebellion.